Hey everyone, and welcome. Today we're going to be talking about season 1 of the show Loki. Fun fact, Tom Hiddleston, Gugu mbatha-raw, and Wunmi Masaka all attended the Royal Academy of Dramatic Art. This show came out in 2021 and stars Tom Hiddleston, Owen Wilson, and Sophia Martino, and was directed by Kate Heron. So, without further ado, let's get right into it. Loki sees the titular hero being brought to the Time Variance Authority after stealing the Tesseract during the events of Avengers Endgame. The TVA monitors threats to the timeline and enlists Loki in finding a person who is threatening the timeline but also threatening to unravel the TVA. Now Loki must travel through time to find this person, but he is also learning a little bit more about how time works. Don't forget to subscribe down below. Thanks. The cast of this show is amazing. You have Tom Hiddleston, who was in Crimson Peak. Gugu mbatha-raw was in Belle. Wunmi Masaka was in Lovecraft Country. Owen Wilson was in Cars. Tara Strong was in Teen Titans. Richard Grant was in Logan. Jonathan Majors was in Lovecraft Country. And Kate Heron also directed episodes of Sex Education. Loki is a time-traveling crime thriller. If you liked WandaVision, Thor, or Catch Me If You Can, then I suggest you give Loki a watch. I feel like with each Marvel show that we've gotten so far, there's some hidden themes that you may have caught, you may not have caught, and I feel like in Loki that is no different. In Loki, we see themes of free will and identity. I love that they decide to include these, smaller themes within their shows to show that, the show has a main plot of Loki, trying to figure out who's causing all of this drama and, figuring out who's behind the TVA. But then there's a more deeper message going, with free will and learning more about like your own personal identity. Loki was an interesting show, and there was a lot to explain because there was a lot of new concepts that were being introduced in this show. I thought that the first 2 episodes of the show were a little slow, but I felt like after that, the show really picked up. I thought that Tom Hiddleston did a great job portraying Loki and showing his growth throughout the season. In the show, we see how Loki starts off very cocky, very sure that, he is this tough guy and he can handle anything and that, he needs to do everything by himself. And as the show progresses, he slowly becomes like this anti-hero who starts to care about other people besides just himself. I did, however, think it was weird, this like storyline of him falling for Sylvie. I thought it was weird considering that they are both like the same person, just kind of a little bit different. So I just thought it was weird. It seemed like he was like falling in love with himself, basically. I felt that Sylvie's anger towards the TVA was warranted considering that they ruined her life. I really was hoping that she wouldn't go for vengeance in the end, but that's what she did, and she let me down a little bit. But I am excited to see kind of what's going to happen following what she did at the end of the series, because I definitely know that there's going to be some crazy side effects from her actions. I love seeing Owen Wilson in this show, who played this like time traveling detective. I thought he did a great job portraying this character who at first seems very loyal to the TVA and their mission, but starts to question it more and more as the show progresses. I thought that Mobius and Loki had great chemistry on the show, and I love to see their friendship. I thought it was cool how Mobius put his job on the line for Loki, and Loki kind of repaid him for that by letting Mobius know that everyone in the TVA was variants and that the TVA had been lying to them the whole time. Wumi Masaku did a great job as Hunter B-52, and I love that her character did not put up with Loki's crap. On the show, we see how Loki always has these big, gigantic speeches that are usually part of some devious plan, and she was not fooled by any of his shenanigans. I really hope that we get to see Hunter B-52 in future Marvel projects, maybe even helping restoring the timeline. I thought that Judge Renslayer was such an interesting character and was hiding so much. Throughout the show, I never really trusted her because I always felt like she knew something and she wasn't sharing all of her information. In the end, when we come to find out that the timekeepers aren't real, instead of, letting people know this, her first response is that, to kind of uphold the TVA. And then that made me really think that she was a villain because she wasn't really after the truth. She just wanted to stay in power. I'm really interested to see where Judge Renslayer went at the end of the season because there's so many options that she could have taken when she was leaving, and we really don't know what she was up to. I'm really looking forward to see her return in future MCU projects because I know that she has some tricks up her sleeves and I really want to know what her true motives are. I thought it was interesting when we found out that the timekeepers actually weren't like real beings, they were actually just animatronics. When I was watching that scene, the first thing that crossed my mind was actually wondering who else knew about this. Because there are so many different moving parts within the TVA to keep it up and running. I felt like there was someone else who probably already knew that the timekeepers that were in that room weren't real. And I was just wondering who actually knew the secrets that, about the TVA. Miss Minutes was such an interesting object, and I felt like she was there to keep an eye on the TVA and its employees. Like, I, never really knew what her motives were, but I knew that she definitely has some type of connection to He Who Remains, and I'm definitely interested to learn a little bit more about Miss Minutes and learning about how much she actually knows and, if that is controlled by He Who Remains or by someone else. I love Jonathan Majors, and I was really excited to see him as He Who Remains. I thought it was cool to learn a little bit more about his history and learn about how his other variants are evil and he's trying to stop them, but also how he used the TVA to try to keep the timeline intact and prevent his other variants from coming out. I knew that Jonathan Majors was going to be in the next Ant-Man, but I did not expect him to be in this show. I'm really looking forward to seeing his other variants and seeing how they wreak havoc on the MCU. I love that we got to see so many different variants of Loki. It was interesting to see how they were all basically the same person, but slightly different. I love that all of their Nexus events involved Thor, and it just showed that those two brothers' destinies are always intertwined. I thought it was cool to see all of the different locations that the show brought us. We weren't only traveling through time, but we were also traveling to different locations. And it was cool to see all these different places that were created for this show. At the end of the show, we see how the timeline is branching off in like a crazy fashion. And I'm really interested to see who's going to come and fix it. I know that there's been speculation that that's what Doctor Strange, the Multiverse of Madness, is going to be about, but it seems like it's going to take more than one person to come and try to fix this. My favorite scene in this show is when classic Loki creates this illusion to distract Elias. We've seen Loki create illusions in the past, but we've never seen something on this scale. I thought it was great how there's also a connection back to the Thor movies because the place that he creates is Asgard. It was crazy to see this, but also a nice gesture that classic Loki sacrificed his life so that, the Loki that we know can, enchant Elias so he can get to this mysterious place that Elias is blocking. I thought it was great too when he screamed glorious purpose because it seemed like that was a moment where he realized that, he is sacrificing himself for other people and that at this point he's not only worrying about himself anymore, he's doing something good to, help someone else. Loki had a great cast, amazing storylines, and beautiful visuals. It left me with a lot of questions, but also a lot of excitement for season 2 and the future for the MCU. If you have not seen Loki, I suggest that you go and watch it on Disney+. Thank you for watching my video. I would love to hear your thoughts down below in the comments. If you have not subscribed, please do so you can keep up to date with more of my videos. But besides that, everyone stay safe, have fun. Goodbye.